There comes a moment in life when something quietly shifts. Nothing dramatic happens, no big decision. No clear turning point. But one day, you notice that things don't feel as urgent as they used to. Messages can wait. Opinions don't pull you in immediately. Situations that once made your chest tighten now feel manageable. Not because life got easier, but because you changed internally. This is what it means to be grounded. Being grounded is not about being calm all the time. It's not about suppressing emotion or pretending you don't care. It's about where urgency lives for most people. Urgency lives outside of them. In deadlines. In reactions. In other people's expectations. Their nervous system is constantly responding to external signals, as if every moment demands immediate action. This creates a permanent sense of pressure. When you are not grounded, everything feels urgent because your inner world has no stable center. Grounded people experience the same world, but it lands differently. They still receive information. They still face demands. They still deal with uncertainty. But urgency no longer dictates their behavior. That's the difference. Urgency is not removed. It is repositioned. Most people confuse urgency with importance. If something feels intense, they assume it must be addressed immediately. If someone reacts strongly, they believe a response is required right now. If tension appears, they rush to resolve it. Grounded people don't do this. They understand that intensity is not instruction. Just because something feels loud doesn't mean it deserves speed. Just because something feels uncomfortable don't mean it needs immediate fixing. This understanding changes everything. When you are grounded, your first response is not action. It is orientation. You ask yourself, often unconsciously, what actually matters here? What is real? And what is just noise? What will still matter tomorrow? This pause is small, but it breaks the cycle of urgency. Most urgency feeds on reaction. When reaction slows, urgency collapses. That is why grounded people appear unbothered. Not because they don't care, but because they are no longer governed by reflex. They don't live inside every moment. They stand behind the moment and observe it. This changes how time feels. For ungrounded people, time feels aggressive. It pushes. It pressures. It constantly demands attention. For grounded people, time feels spacious, not slow, but spacious. There is room to think. Room to feel without drowning. Room to choose instead of panic. This space is deeply unsettling to people who live in urgency. Because urgency relies on shared momentum. If everyone is rushing, rushing feels normal. If everyone is anxious, anxiety feels justified. Grounded people break that agreement. They don't match speed. They don't mirror tension. They don't amplify emotion. And this alone changes how others interact with them. Conversations slow down. People repeat themselves more carefully. Pressure tactics stop working. Not because the grounded person resists, but because urgency finds no echo. Urgency needs participation. Without it, it dissolves. Another reason nothing feels urgent anymore when you're grounded. Because you stop tying your identity to immediate outcomes. Ungrounded. People feel like every moment is a verdict, a response. Determines their worth. A reaction defines who they are. A mistake feels permanent. This creates panic. Grounded people no longer experience life this way. They understand that most moments are temporary. A misunderstanding today does not define tomorrow. A delay is not a disaster. An uncomfortable interaction is not a collapse. This long view creates emotional stability. Stability creates patience. And patience eliminates false urgency. When you're grounded, you don't rush to defend yourself. You don't rush to explain. You don't rush to correct every perception. You trust consistency. Over time. This trust removes pressure. People feel it. Immediately, they sense that you are not scrambling to manage impressions. That you are not chasing validation. That you are not emotionally leaning on the moment. This makes interactions feel lighter, and lighter interactions don't create urgency. Another shift happens internally. Your body changes how it responds. The constant low-level tension fades. Your breathing slows without effort. Your movements become more economical. This isn't discipline. It's regulation. When your nervous system is regulated, everything feels less urgent. Because urgency is often just unmanaged stress. Grounded people still act decisively when needed. But decisiveness comes from clarity, not pressure. They move when movement is required, not when anxiety demands it. This distinction is subtle, but powerful. Over time, grounded people develop a different relationship with problems. Problems no longer feel like emergencies. They feel like situations. Situations can be assessed. Emergencies demand reaction. Most problems do not require emergency responses. They require structure. Grounded people provide that structure simply by staying steady. This steadiness changes outcomes, not because they are smarter, but because they are not rushed. Rushed decisions are rarely good decisions. Grounded people allow solutions to emerge instead of forcing them under pressure. This is why nothing feels urgent anymore. Not because nothing matters, but because everything is seen more clearly. Urgency thrives in confusion. Grounding creates clarity. Clarity removes panic. And without panic, urgency has no fuel. Perhaps the most important change is how grounded people relate to themselves. They stop being at war with their internal state. They don't fight emotions. They don't judge thoughts. They don't panic over discomfort. They allow internal experience with letting it take control. This creates internal trust. When you trust yourself to handle discomfort, you stop rushing to escape it. And when you stop rushing, urgency disappears. Life still moves. Deadlines still exist. Challenges still come. But they no longer feel like threats. They feel like part of the process. That is grounding. Not detachment, not indifference, but a deep internal steadiness that changes how everything else is experienced. When you're grounded, nothing feels urgent anymore. Not because life slowed down, but because you did. And that changes everything. Another reason nothing feels urgent anymore when you're grounded is that you stop confusing pressure with responsibility. Most people feel pressured and assume they are responsible for fixing everything. Immediately, they feel responsible for other people's emotions, for maintaining harmony, for resolving tension as soon as it appears. This creates a constant sense of urgency. Grounded people don't reject responsibility. They redefine it. They understand that not every emotion is theirs to manage. Not every reaction needs a response. Not every situation requires intervention. This clarity removes unnecessary weight. When you stop carrying emotional responsibility that isn't yours, your mind becomes quieter, and a quiet mind does not rush. Another subtle shift happens in how grounded people deal with expectations. Ungrounded people try to meet expectations in real time. They adjust immediately. They explain themselves. They rush to comply or resist. Grounded people pause. They don't deny expectations, but they don't obey them automatically. They evaluate. Is this expectation reasonable? Is it aligned with reality? Does it require immediate action, or can it wait? This evaluation takes place internally, often without a word spoken. And that internal evaluation slows everything down. Slowness here is not inefficiency. It is discernment. Discernment removes urgency. Another reason urgency fades is because grounded people trust recovery. Ungrounded people fear mistakes. Because they don't trust themselves to recover, they rush decisions to avoid discomfort. They act quickly to prevent imagined damage. Grounded people trust that even if something goes wrong, they can respond thoughtfully. This trust removes panic. When panic disappears, urgency follows. Grounded people also experience time differently. They stop slicing life into emergencies. They see continuity instead of collapse. A bad moment is just a moment. A delay is just a delay. A misunderstanding is just a misunderstanding. Nothing becomes total. This perspective stabilizes emotion. Stabilized emotion does not rush. Perhaps the most important change is that grounded people stop needing closure. Immediately. They allow things to remain open, unanswered questions, unresolved conversations, incomplete information. This tolerance for openness is rare. Most urgency comes from the need to close loops quickly to relieve anxiety. Grounded people can sit with open loops. They don't force resolution. They don't chase certainty. And because they don't chase, nothing feels like it's slipping away. This is why grounded people often appear patient, not passive. Patient. They act when action is appropriate. They wait when waiting is wiser. And wisdom does not rush. So when you notice that nothing feels urgent anymore, it isn't because you've become detached from life. It's because you've become properly oriented within it. You're no longer inside the noise. You're positioned above it. And from that position, urgency loses its power.